Celtic and Rangers have been home to some top players in years gone by, players who have gone on to command huge fees once their time in Glasgow has come to an end. So today we're going to look at the 12 most expensive departures from Celtic and Rangers, 6 from each, and look at where they are now. But first, our friends over at 67 Hail Hail and Rangers News have a wee podcast coming out this week. The Boys vs the Blue Noses is the first joint Celtic and Rangers podcast, apparently, and will be coming in your ears every week, with the first episode available right now. To ensure you never miss an episode, hit the link in the description below and hit subscribe. So let the debate begin, and let's hope this doesn't all end in tears. It probably will. On with the video. Our first Rangers player is Torre André Flo. He's still the most expensive player in Rangers history, costing £12 million in 2000 from Chelsea. 2 years later he was on the move again, joining Sunderland for £6.75 million. And after a couple of fruitful seasons in Scotland, Flo was a disaster in the northeast of England, struggling in a Black Cat shirt, proving to be a waste of money. Flo is now back at Chelsea as the lone player technical coach, whatever that means. Next is Stuart Armstrong. A hoop who moved to the Premier League recently, Stuart Armstrong joined Southampton last summer after being the driving force in Celtic's invincible season, before struggling with injuries the campaign after. The midfielder cost Southampton £7 million, but his debut year in the Premier League didn't quite go to plan, with Armstrong struggling to influence games as Southampton narrowly avoided relegation. Back to Rangers with Barry Ferguson. A former Rangers captain with more than 300 appearances across 2 spells at Ibrox, Ferguson made a big money move down south in 2003, joining Blackburn Rovers for £7.5 million. Immediately made captain by fellow Scot Graham Souness, Ferguson spent just a season and a half in England before returning to Rangers, admitting the Premier League could not compete with a game like the old firm. Ferguson is now in management, in charge of Lowland League side Celtic Hearts. Next up is Carlos Cuellar. A Spanish defender who's played here, there and everywhere, Cuellar spent just 1 season with Rangers, arriving in 2007 from Osasuna. It was an incredible season as well, being named Player of the Year before stating that he wanted to stay forever. But that was a lie, of course, as Cuellar moved to Aston Villa for £7.8 million. Now aged 37, Cuellar is still playing, representing Bnei Yehuda in Israel. I think I've said that wrong, but never mind. Now we've got Jean-Alain Boumsong. This is another defender who Rangers got daft money for, and this time it was Newcastle who paid the price. The French defender had only arrived at Rangers a few months earlier on a free, but the Magpies spent £8 million on Boumsong, and he's still talked about today in the North East, but for all the wrong reasons. After retiring in 2013, he's now a part of the coaching setup for the Cameroonian national team. Next it's Giovanni van Bronckhorst. The run of Rangers players continues, this time with the Dutchman who Arsenal spent £8.5 million on, making him the most expensive Rangers departure in 2001, a record he'd hold for 7 years. He was a midfielder back then, and his time at Arsenal was damaged by injury before moving to Barcelona in 2003. Van Bronckhorst was last seeded as manager at Feyenoord, winning a league title and 2 Dutch Cups before leaving this summer. Our final Rangers player is Alan Hutton. Rangers have never received as much money for a player as they have for Alan Hutton. It's a record they likely won't break until Alfredo Morelos leaves. Tottenham paid £9 million for Hutton back in 2008 when he was considered the next best thing, with huge teams after the Scottish defender. Well, 11 years on, he's just been released by Aston Villa, so maybe Rangers could bring Hutton home for absolutely nothing. Back to Celtic with Aiden McGee. In August 2010, Aiden McGee made a very odd career choice, leaving Celtic to join Russian side Spartak Moscow for a then record fee of £9.5 million. An incredibly naturally gifted footballer, McGee is still going at the age of 33, but was unable to guide Sunderland out of League One last season, but was easily one of their best players. Next we've got Fraser Forster. Once upon a time, Fraser Forster was a top goalkeeper. Oh, how things have changed. Forster really made his name at Celtic, joining from Newcastle back in 2010, initially on loan. After 4 years as the Celtic number 1, Forster moved back to England with Southampton, who paid £10 million for his services. After starting strongly, Forster now can't even get a game at St Mary's, which is a little bit sad in all honesty. Next it's Victor Wanyama. The players who swapped Celtic with Southampton continue, and the price continues to rise. This time it was Kenyan midfielder Victor Wanyama, who left for St Mary's for £12.5 million. Wanyama is a real midfielder enforcer, and went one further by joining Tottenham, where he still features occasionally. A powerhouse who likes spaghetti, Wanyama will always be a Celtic legend for his goal against Barcelona. We now move on to Virgil van Dijk. To think, the best centre-back in the world today first made his name at Celtic. Van Dijk looked a class above during his time in Scotland, and he eventually became too big a fish in a smaller pond and moved to, you guessed it, Southampton for £13 million in 2015, where he continued to show what he was capable of. That eventually led to a £75 million move to Liverpool, where Van Dijk recently won the Champions League under Jurgen Klopp. And finally, it's Moussa Dembele. Having left Celtic last summer, the striker became Glasgow's most expensive export, costing Lyon £19.7 million after a couple of impressive years in front of goal playing for Celtic. He ended his first season there with a record just shy of a goal every other game, which is damn impressive, and Celtic will be looking forward to his next big move, as apparently they'll get a bit extra cash due to a sell-on clause. So that's the 12 most expensive Celtic and Rangers exports and where they are now. Please check out the Boys vs the Blue Noses podcast using the link below. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.